Hi, my name is Keith Carson.
Tyrone Cosi.
Renee Tucker.
Joseph Larkin.
Sarah Dalton.
Derek Johnson.
Elena Straughter. Michelle Love.
Well, we're here to educate the public on the growing trend of identity theft among foster youth and the elderly populations.
Today we've just offered the space for an event that we think is really important. We're trying to do some programs that really target emancipated foster youth and really help them transition into successful lives beyond the foster care program.
Well, this is a very important thing of identity theft that brings me to this event today. We have the Consumer Affairs Mission, which is under the county's auspices, and they're always out in the community to make sure that the community knows how to protect itself in terms of fraud and everything else. But identity theft is a real big issue.
A lot of times, young people don't think that they can have their identity stolen from them and until it happens. And they don't really understand how challenging it is once it is stolen from them.
Today I'm going to be talking about identity theft as it relates to foster youth ages 16 and 17 and non-minor dependents 18 to 21. So in September 2011, President Obama passed the Children and Families Improvement and Innovation Act. And what that said in part was that foster youth were entitled to their credit report. Why is that necessary? Oftentimes, foster youth are victims, and the people that have the information that allows someone to create another identity is their parent. Who has your social security number when you're 12, 13? No one remembers that, it's your parent. And I have been doing this work for about 17 years, and there have been times where I've come across looking at a parent's criminal record as we do our reports and realized, wait a minute, that's not your social security number, and straightening that out.
Well, the information that we are sharing on identity theft, I was a victim to identity theft, so I can kind of relate to it from my personal experience. But this is a updated 21st century crime, so this event is primarily awareness to the community.
Since this has been going on so long, there's a clearinghouse rule that says a bank, a credit union, cannot reimburse you past 90 days. So therefore, I had to go another route to try to retrieve the rest of my money. So as a result of that, I contacted the Attorney General's office. So when we started developing this program, a lot of good names came to play because once when you're a victim, you just know who to contact. So we all, if we're not a victim, it could be me today, but it can be you tomorrow.
Today I'm here to talk about identity theft and strategies that consumers can use to protect themselves. And also I'll go into a little bit about online privacy and safe social networking tips. So when we're talking about foster youth, these are very simple tips that I'm going to talk about that we can apply in our own lives. And as Supervisor Carson said, share out in the field in our community groups. Today, Attorney General Harris is focusing more resources and attention on privacy than any other Attorney General in the country. Last year, she established our unit, the Privacy Enforcement and Protection Unit, and I'm excited to be here today to tell you a little bit about what we do and how you can protect your privacy.
Well, it's really important because most youth are not going to have a handle on what to do if they feel that they are a victim of identity theft or fraud. And it's growing more and more every day in America. And our youth are just being affected by it and just starting out. It's just really important that they have this information and know where to go to get help. This is really financial literacy. Now, how many people have heard that term, financial literacy? But what does it really mean? You know, well, if a person can be illiterate, then they can be
literate. And it's the same thing with financial things. If you can be financially illiterate. And so financial literacy, to make it meaningful, is really about learning about things that affect our lives, decisions that we have to make that we're just not taught. Because still today, there's very few schools that have this information being given to our youth or our children from kindergarten up. In learning how to have dignity when it comes to handling money and what to do. And so it's something that is really needed. And so I found in Operation Hope and SparkPoint a place where I felt that this was really where the rubber was meeting the road, where we were really doing things to help people learn about how to handle money and how to handle credit and to have hope, because it's not the worst thing in the world to have bad credit. I mean, we don't want to have it, but there are things that are worse than that. And what we have to learn is that we've got to make a decision that we want to know what it is, but it's not enough to just know. Then we've got to have that commitment that we have that power to change, and then we need to take action.
This is a big deal. There's so many young people who have been unknowingly robbed, of their identity through identity theft. So here you have a young person, 20, 21 years old, who's just starting to really take a closer look at his credit report to see what he has, because he or she is interested in purchasing a car or buying a home down the road or whatever the case might be. And they learned that there's stuff on there that happened when they were 7 years old. Well, how could that happen? They really didn't have anything to do with it, but it's important to know what identity theft is, what it's about, and what do you do about it.
That's a very important thing to understand. Economic, financial freedom can be the difference between economic freedom or financial slavery. Two things you want to do with Operation Hope. First thing you want to do is go to a free credit and money management workshop. Don't cost you any more than 3 hours of your time. You get a certificate when it's done. You get a credit report, a soft hit credit report before it's done. So I always say start there. Why do I say that? Because you'll be surprised in that 3-hour window how many answers you'll get to your questions that somebody else is going through. The same thing you're going through, and they'll ask those questions. So that's good to get that knowledge, right? Then you can work with a counselor like Renee, or a gentleman in our office named Romero, on an ongoing basis. You can work with them and set your goals. Renee always asks first, what do you ask Renee? What do you want to do? Where are you going?
Yeah, what do you have? What are your goals and working on your
What's important to you? Why is that important? Because we don't do stuff in a vacuum, guys. That's a problem a lot of times with nonprofits. They all are like silos. Even public agencies are like they're all silos. They're not paying attention to what everybody else is doing. Guess what? It's a holistic approach, right? You got to take a holistic approach. So we ask broader questions. Why? Because we want to make sure that we're in alignment with what your desires and what your wishes are. Because it don't matter if it's our wishes. That's not it. We want to help people because we don't want people to be in financial slavery, right? So we want to make a difference, right? But we can't force people to come and take a workshop. You coming because there's some reason for you to be there, because there's something you're working on or something you want. Maybe you want to buy a house. Maybe you want to start your own business. Guess what? You're not going to go to SBA like we did 30 years ago and get you a loan. That don't happen anymore. They're called community express loans. They've virtually gone away, virtually disappeared. So now you have to depend on your own equity, your own savings, your own layers of security you're trying to create. You create that by focusing on cleaning your credit up. And like I said, it's not rocket science. You can work on it. You can get it to where you want it to be. You can be on top of it all the time. You can do that. But it takes effort on your part. You cannot stick your head in the sand and think the stuff is going to be resolved. It ain't going to happen. I know because I did it. I stuck my head in the sand a lot of times. And I'll tell you, you come back out the sand, guess what? The problem's still there. Hadn't disappeared yet. So you got to figure out, get help to figure out you're not by yourself. Don't take this on as some wall of shame that you got to carry around with you because you're not. You think that who you are is connected to your credit score. That's furthest from the truth. But you can clean it up.
Every day, you take advantage of all kinds of services: mobile, social media, free internet search, and more. When you use these services, you're sharing information about yourself, with friends, with businesses, while you're out and about, while you're at home. That information is shared and sold within businesses, with their affiliates, with ad networks. So on a typical day, you might shop at a store and use a loyalty card to take advantage of a sale. And your shopping habits may be shared or sold. You might need to fill a prescription, and your prescription history may be shared or sold. You might use a daily coupon app to get a deal at a nearby restaurant, and your location information may be shared or sold. You might visit a news site where you notice an ad for your favorite brand of shoes. It's an online sale, this weekend only, so you buy a pair. And the articles you read and your shoe preferences may be shared or sold. You might log into a social network and see that your friends are filling out an All About Me quiz. You get the quiz app and share your answers, and your quiz responses and profile information may be shared or sold. A regular day. You've taken care of business, used some free services, gotten some good deals, and revealed all kinds of information about yourself. So at the end of the day, the question is, who has your information, and where is it going next?
All right, well, they asked 2 questions in the end. We're going to come back to those 2 questions in a minute, but let me just ask a question. Raise your hand. How many people in here use the internet at least? Raise your hand. How many people use the internet? Is that everybody? Okay, how many people use the internet at least 5 times a week? Raise your hand. At least 5 times. How many people use it at least 10 times a week? How many people use it at least 10 times in a day? Right. Okay, so we're constantly on the internet, right? All the time. Okay? That's one of the main sources you have to be careful. You saw where it said shared information. That's where a lot of information gets shared on. Now, so let me ask you this question based on what you saw. What are some of the forms of, they use the term shared information. What are some examples of that? Just holler it out. Yes, sir. Pharmacy, right? So your medical needs and et cetera. What else? What else did you hear?
Reward cards.
I'm sorry.
Reward cards.
Reward cards. That's right. Yes, ma'am. Surveys. That's a good one. That's a tricky one. What else? Did you hear anything different? What else?
The daily deal, like that's like Groupon, that type of thing.
Yeah, a daily deal. You know, something like that. You know, there's a lot of stuff. Information is constantly being shared. In fact, that's one of the big concerns now, right, with the NSA. I mean, basically, they've developed encryption technology to be able to bust into just about any kind of, you know, encryption technology that exists out there. I know that's a little disturbing to a lot of us, you know, in terms of privacy and et cetera, but that just shows you how powerful it is with shared information. Let me give you another example. This is a really good example. During the campaigns, presidential campaigns, the people they paid, the campaigns paid the most money to were data companies who were gathering information for them to help them determine what's the right group that I'm trying to target for this conversation. So anyway, there's a lot going on with that. But so let's start with their questions. So they ended it with 2 questions. Who has your information and where is it going? Who wants to take the first? Who has the information? What do you think? Pardon? I'm just saying I'm asking the question they asked. At the end they said, who has your information and where is it going next? That's the question. So who do you think has your information? I'm sorry? That's right. That's right. Who else? Social Security. Maybe government, kind of quasi-government stuff. What else?
Information brokers.
Information brokers. That's kind of like the marketing folks, but actually sometimes information brokers, actually sometimes marketing companies are their clients. Okay, isn't that interesting? Who else?
Government.
Government, okay, but there's also another little aspect of this. These are scam artists, independent folks who are using algorithms sometimes in order to pull information down. You ever heard of something called cookies? I mean, I'm not talking about the one you're trying to clear out your teeth or something, you know, look. I'm not talking about that one. Not at all, right? I'm talking about the electronic version of cookies. Every time you go in and grab something, this is the reason why anybody has Google, like email, at Gmail, something like that. You ever notice now when you're putting in some information and you're typing a note to somebody and you use a certain word, and then suddenly something pops up on the right side, completely related, absolutely related to seconds ago what you wrote, that you're writing to someone. So there are algorithms that are reading the language that you're using. going out to find it, making the assumption that this is something that is of interest to you, and then pulls up information on the side of your screen.
What is it called?
Like that.
Something- I can't hear
Pop-ups?
you say something rhythm, what do you call them?
Algorithms.
Elga?
Elga. I think it's like algorithms. Oh, anyone will spell it in math, you know. But it is a. This,
ALGORITHMS algorithms? Is that what you're talking
yes,
about?
that's what I'm trying to
Like
say.
an
I say
algebra?
pillow too instead of pillow,
Yeah.
so it probably I got a little mixed. That's that New Orleans thing. But bottom line is that this is how these are programs that are written to capture information. Now they're doing it for marketing purposes. They're doing it because they're saying, well, heck, if you're thinking about this, I'm gonna pop it up on the right so you can hit that and go to it. Remember before you go on the search engine, you put in your stuff, it searches for you. Today you don't have to do that. It's push-pull technology. It's what's going on. So just be aware of it. I'm not saying it's evil. I'm not saying it's bad. Don't get me wrong about that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that technology is being used in a way that's really driving your information around. It's just parking your information all in different places, hoping that this is of interest to you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say something. It might sound totally stupid, but I got mad at a computer one day because I was really trying to apply for this job. And it kept popping up, do you want more education? Do you want more education? And I couldn't get that education stuff off of there, so I gave up on looking for the job. And finally, I'm in the library, and I yelled at the computer. I'm like, if I had the money, I could get an education, Because I don't understand some of the stuff that just keeps popping up every minute. You got to keep closing the windows and everything else.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. So just be aware of it, that it's not happening arbitrarily. These things are happening for a reason because they're data gathering the information. So just be conscious of that. And so where is it going next? So you guys kind of answered that question, who has your information, but where is it going next? What do you think? What do you think? Where is it going, sir? Just take a guess. Where would it go? If someone captured your information, it's marketing companies, government, something, where would it go next? What do you think? That's the danger. We don't know, right?
We don't know.
We don't know, but guess what? It's being sold to someone else. It's being sold to someone else. It's being sold to someone else. And so even one thing that I always tell people to be careful of, and then we're going to start the other clip in a minute. Keep me honest with the time. Okay. Thank you. Is that most organizations own a bunch of other organizations or have affiliate relationships with them. And so they will ask you up front when you start working with them, get a new market, you get a new credit card or something. Is it okay if we let our affiliates know?
Sounds so innocent.
No. Say no, it's not okay unless you specifically know. I would say no to that. No, it's not okay. I don't want you just giving my stuff out to anybody. I want to have control over that. Now, who knows what they do anyway? But the bottom line is that they have to ask you, and before you think it's a benefit to get all that stuff, you need to think twice about it, because if you don't, you'll be inundated by it. Has anyone noticed today that you get more emails today than you've ever gotten before?
Oh, God, yes.
And it's kind of like the phone situation. Remember at one time, you get people calling you up, hi, I'm working for blah, 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 and we got to, no, put me on your do not call list, click, right? Those calls, now they're robocalls. You think it's actually a human being talking. Hello? Hello? I hate that. It just drives me crazy. I start talking to the machine. I didn't know it was a machine. Hey, oh, man. Got to listen to this. Let me click up robocalls, right? But the other piece of this is emails. Now, because of a law that was passed which said it's okay to give your email address down there, bada boom. Emails are everywhere now. So you just have to be conscious of it. And never, by the way, it's a side note. If you get one of those emails from a friend of yours and say, I'm embarrassed, but I'm stuck in Spain somewhere, and I'm out of money, I'm in the Caribbean, I'm out of money, please don't fall for that. Best thing you do is if you got that friend's phone number, call them up and say, I think your email's been hacked.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's typically what happens. The email gets hacked, you open it up, you respond to it, and then it gets into all your personal information, gets into all your directory, and now it starts to send something out to all those people in your name. So just be aware of it for a minute, okay? So the bottom line is that, so final question here is, where do you go to get more information? Where would you go to get more information about shared information? That's an easy answer because we're going to ask that all the time. What was that? The FTC, the Federal Trade. Ding, 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 ding. She got that right. All right. So, hey,
All right.
let's go get your prize. We love you. Okay.
Next.
This is you. You've been ripped off. or you've spotted a scam. Don't keep it to yourself. Take it to the Federal Trade Commission by filing a complaint. What kind of complaint? The Federal Trade Commission is the nation's consumer protection agency. So if a business doesn't deliver on its promises, or if someone cheats you out of your money, the Federal Trade Commission wants to hear about it.
I bought a phone card with 350 minutes of calling time, but it cut me off after 20.
I'm getting bills for things I didn't buy. I think someone stole my identity.
Letter said I won a sweepstakes, but I had to wire money to cover the taxes. I did, and never heard from them again.
I responded to an ad online for a free trial offer, but then I started seeing charges for it every month.
I thought the email was from someone who saw my resume and wanted to hire me, but they asked for my bank account number. I reported it to the Federal Trade Commission.
Telling the Federal Trade Commission helps us stop rip-offs, scams, and fraudsters. Your complaints matter here. To file a complaint, just go to ftc.gov/complaint. Click on the link to the Federal Trade Commission Complaint Assistant and answer the questions. Or call 1-877-FTC-HELP. That's all there is to it. If you've been ripped off or scammed, complain to the Federal Trade Commission. It can help put the bad guys out of business.
Okay, so what are some examples of scams?
I got one.
Yes,
I just got one, and he thought I was stupid too. But I'm 40 years old now, so I know not to be taken advantage of. He goes like this to me, he goes, you want a $100 Walmart card. Could you give me your Visa card number so I could debit $9 for the shipping and handling fees from Florida? And I said, no, I can't. I don't have $10. Well, I'm sure you can borrow $10 from someone. I'm like, I don't have $10 and I'm not giving you my credit card number. Click.
Wow. By the way, if you ever get any kind, well, that's a scam, but if you get any kind of call from any telemarketer, you can clearly say to them, please put me on your do not call list. If you say that, they have to do that. Now, if they're legitimate. Yeah. If they're illegitimate, it doesn't matter. They're just making up stuff. That's a good example.
And the reason why I didn't fall for it this time because I fell for it about 2 years ago. They mailed me the same form and got my debit card number from my bank and charged $30 onto my debit card.
Wow.
And they never even sent the gift card.
Wow.
Yeah, so I said, I'm not going to do
On
that.
top of all that, then you didn't get the gift card.
No.
So that one of those ladies that remind me of you, you said you hollered at your computer. Did you see her? She slammed down on the computer. She was upset about that.
Yeah.
So they gave a couple examples of scams. You heard, give me some, what did you hear? What are some of the things you heard? What's an example of some scams? Identity theft is just one, right? So what else?
Once it comes through the mail, too.
Mail pieces coming through the mail, right? Yes, ma'am.
This person always calls me and says, I'm in your area. It's like a medical, and I'm on Medicare. We get a lot of stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. So Medicare scams over the phone, right? Medicare scams. Okay. What else did you hear? Any other scams that you heard? You saw some examples of that? How about the lady who was looking for a job?
Oh, yeah, don't share your Social Security number with too many employers because
Right.
they get your Social Security number and you don't know what they're doing with it.
Well, you shouldn't share it with everybody at any time indiscriminately, but if you are going for a job and you're filling out an application for that job, you typically have to put your Social Security number down.
Well, I'm saying like maybe it would be better to print the application and walk in your application to the employer because then maybe they take you more seriously because you're just putting it on the computer and then that gives more hackers access to your information. That's all I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Very good point. Yes, ma'am.
Some employers very quiet, and I don't understand that, especially if you were born and raised here. They tell you to bring in 2 or 3 pieces of to verify that you're a U.S. citizen. And a lot of times SSN is required. Why is that? If
I don't know.
Born and raised and you can bring in other.
Well, I don't know why, but I can tell you this: there's a lot of people who have the same names. Okay, there's a lot of people who write, names are repeated. They have to distinguish you from someone. The only way they can really do it is Social Security, for the most part, right? But I think the only thing is right here, you should be conscious and cautious of how you put that information out there. You be very smart about that. Now, you heard earlier when Sarah from the Attorney General's office was asking, someone asked a question, I think you asked a question, right, about is it okay to use this, you have to ask for the last four? She said yes. Why do you think she said yes?
Because it's not your entire. Because it's just a limited amount of money.
Right, it's not, both of you right. It's not the total number. It's the only required number. But they already know what your social security number is. So for their security purposes, they're not going to read you the whole number and say, is that true? They're just going to ask you, what's the last four? This is someone who you have an account with. And typically it's your bank. If you're calling into your bank, that's a good example. A lot of times they will say, now before we answer this, maybe you put a special, code password on there, password protected. They may ask you that, and then check your address, and then they'll ask another question. They'll say, well, what's the last four digits of your social security number? You should feel okay about that if, one, you initiated it, or secondly, you know it's your bank. If you got any questions about that, even though she said, yes, you can give them their number, and I can understand why, I would still write down the person's name, just on the safe side, write their name down, what department they're in, just so you have that information.
Lynn didn't worry about identity theft. She always said, who'd want to steal my identity? Lynn never had a credit card or borrowed money. She figured thieves wouldn't mess with someone who had no credit history. One day, Lynn decided to apply for a credit card. She sent in her application, but the company turned her down. Lynn wanted to know what happened. Why didn't she get the credit card? She got a free copy of her credit report to find out. There, Lynn discovered that someone had opened 8 credit cards in her name. They even got a car loan. And whoever used her name wasn't paying any of the bills. The credit report said all the accounts were overdue. Lynn tried to fix these mistakes, but she found out that it's not easy to prove that you did not do something. Those businesses held Lynn responsible for the bills, at least until she proved that the bills belonged to an identity thief. It took a long time, but she fixed the problem. Now Lynn checks her credit report every year to look for signs of identity theft.
So, according to what you just saw, what should you do if you think you're a victim of identity theft?
Go hunt them down. Whoever did
No.
that was trifling.
According to what you just saw, according to what you just saw, what did it say that you should do if you think you're a victim of identity theft?
Contact the bank.
Contact your credit bureaus. Okay, so that's something that you got to remember. And then my follow-up question is, what should you do every year?
Get your credit report.
Okay, so that's what you really want to remember. If you think you're a victim of identity theft, if you think something's not right, the first thing you want to do is call your and let the credit bureaus know. And so we're going to see this reiterated later, but you can get a free credit report every year. There's a federal law that has been passed, and it says that everyone is entitled to a free credit report from all 3 credit bureaus, because there's 3 credit bureaus, and you can get it once a year. So now what you need to know is, how do you get it? And so those 3 credit bureaus, and they're Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. You have to remember that those bureaus are separate, but they, according to that federal law, has designated a particular service to give you that free credit report. It's annual credit report service. So you can get it by phone, you can get it online, or you can get it by mail. So we're gonna see a couple of vignettes that are gonna reinforce that. But if you get it online, it's annualcreditreport.com.
They wouldn't give me mine.
Well,
They said
I
already had one.
recommend that you call and order it.
Okay.
And the reason is, and let me give you the number for calling, it's 1-877-322-8228. And the reason I recommend that you call is it'll prompt you to give that information over the phone. If you go on the internet and try to do it online, then they're going to be very, very careful about identifying who you are. And so depending on what's on your credit reports may determine whether or not there's enough information that they can ask you to identify who you are. And if they can't, or you don't know what's on your credit report, then you're not going to be able to answer the questions correctly, and they're not going to release it. They're going to tell you that you need to call or you need to mail in.
Well, they said I already had my free annual one, but he just told me, one of your representatives said that if you were a victim of identity theft or fraud, that you could get it one once a month.
Right, because that prompt, when you call the number that I just gave you,
Okay.
it prompts you whether or not you were a victim of identity theft. If you were a victim of identity theft and you answer that, then it will take you through so that you can get, so that all 3 bureaus are notified and so that you can get those copies.
Renee, if I could add to that, I think what Jason was talking about is that, because he was talking about you could go every month, and I think he may have been referring, you tell me if I'm right, Renee, he could have been referring to contacting the 3 of them individually each month, because it doesn't seem like you can get an annualcreditreport.com, that's an annual credit report.
Okay, but what he was saying is that after you report it,
Or after you report a case
it's
of fraud.
reported
Right.
to the bureaus as identity theft,
Yeah.
then you have the right to follow up
Right.
once a month and get a report free to make sure that that identity theft is handled. So once you report it.
Right.
So here's the thing to remember is it's annual credit report service, annualcreditreport.com, that you get it, that you get your reports. You report identity theft by first contacting the credit bureaus. Okay?
Renee?
Yeah.
Can't you get one from each bureau once per year? Is that?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so the thing is if you go to each of those bureaus, if you go to the bureaus online and you look for free credit, it's going to go right back to annualcreditreport.com. It's going to go right back to that page. So what I'm saying is those 3 bureaus have designated annual credit report service as the vehicle for you to get your free report once a year.
But it doesn't give you a score though, right?
It does not give you a score.
That's
We're going to
important.
get into that. Yes.
One of the things I've discovered is with those URLs,
Hold on.
one of the things I discovered with the URLs personally is that if you type in like freecreditreport.com, they'll try to charge you. So
Yeah.
the vehicle is you want to go to Annual Credit Report, which is free, but there is a group out there that's advertising as freecreditreport.com that'll try to make
Yeah, they
you
do
pay.
commercials on TV about
And
it.
they were trying to get my credit card number, and I wasn't going
So
for it
it's
either.
very important to remember. And if you have any questions, where should you go?
FTC.
FTC. So if you forget what we just talked about, go to the ftc.gov and it will tell you what to do.
What to do if you are a victim of identity theft? If your identity's been stolen, the FTC is the right place to learn how to set things straight. Here are 3 steps to take. First, call one of the nationwide credit reporting companies. Ask them to put a fraud alert on your credit report. This means businesses must confirm that you are you before they extend credit in your name. The alert is a roadblock in the path of an identity thief, and it's just one phone call away. Second, order free copies of your credit report from each of the nationwide credit reporting companies. Third, complete the complaint form at ftc.gov/complaint. This creates an identity theft affidavit, which helps you file a police report. Keep records of your calls and copies of your documents. You'll use them later on. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
This little vignette is called Rapid Response. So what are some of the things that can alert you that you may be a victim of identity theft? Do you remember those flashing up? Some of the things that were on there, like, for example, getting utility bills that's in your name that you didn't have. So this is talking about alerts. Think about things that may alert you that you may be a victim of identity theft. Or if the IRS, sends you a letter or you can't file your taxes or something. This is to get you to think about things that may alert you that something's not right. Yeah.
I just had that happen to me here recently, and I get my credit report every year for the last, say, 10 to 15 years, and I keep them, so I can track everything. And my father died 7 years ago. Now, this wasn't on my report last year, but this year, it showed up where a water bill, an outstanding water bill for like $79, but they had it in my name. So I called the company that represents East Bay Mud, and I told them, this is not me. I haven't had a stable address in over X amount of years, and I can prove it. I can prove it by the credit report because it shows your addresses on there. Not only that, other documentation. But so she said, well, what happened? I said, my father, who died 7 years ago. But I think that, how you have bad siblings, and they're the only ones that could know my Social Security number because of some of the state issues. And you need your Social Security number. So they put it on there, but he said, well, we're gonna have to do some research. Well, go ahead and do your research, But I know this is not mine, it's my father's. I'm his daughter. So they said he was gonna get back to me. But in that case, what else would I do?
In that case, what you're really doing is you're asking that collection agency to validate that debt. In other words, you're asking them to tell you, how they got that debt. And they should be able to give you that information. So if they don't, then you need to call them back again and ask for a second time, because under the FTC, they have to give you that information. Otherwise, what you can do is you can dispute the information.
Okay, because they did promise they would do it within 78 hours. They haven't done that, and I also, when I first called them, requested they give me a written confirmation of the conversation and the nature of it. I haven't heard anything
They
from
need to
them.
verify it. Otherwise, if they don't verify it, then you can actually report it to the FTC again and find out what law they're violating, because they're supposed to be able to give you an answer within a certain period of time, within 30 days, really.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's go. Let's move on.
What to do if you are a victim of identity theft? If your identity's been stolen, the FTC is the right place to learn how to set things straight. Here are 3 steps to take. First, call one of the nationwide credit reporting companies. Ask them to put a fraud alert on your credit report. This means businesses must confirm that you are you before they extend credit in your name. The alert is a roadblock in the path of an identity thief, and it's just one phone call away. Second, order free copies of your credit report from each of the nationwide credit reporting companies. Third, complete the complaint form at ftc.gov/complaint. This creates an identity theft affidavit, which helps you file a police report. Keep records of your calls and copies of your documents. You'll use them later on. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
All right, so this one goes into just a little bit more detail. So what is the first, what do you do first and why? You're dealing with identity theft.
A fraud alert to each one of the credit bureaus, 3 major credit bureaus.
Right, the first thing, fraud, have a fraud alert put on. That's a very valuable thing to do. We mentioned that just a little bit earlier, but if you think that you are been a victim of identity theft, make that the very first thing you do. What's the second and third thing?
Free copies of credit reports.
Now you notice it said all 3. go to all three, but as Renee explained, it may bounce you back to annualcreditreport.com. But I do think that if you have been a victim and you filed it, you may be able to go to them also individually. I would say to go looking at it a little bit deeper to make sure you get what you need. Now, if you go to them individually, you'll probably get a credit score. You don't know? Oh, so the free report, you don't get a credit score from it? So it's only done when we're doing the counseling work and we do a transaction, TransUnion or something like that. Okay.
Right.
Why don't you touch on that when we come back up? Yes, sir.
May I say something about what you just said?
Sure.
If you allow me a minute or so. In 2007, 2008, I used to advertise a lot, telephone directories, advertisements, and someone compromised my name. Again, I was a real estate broker, and they were contacting elderly people saying that they were who I am, trying to scam them out of the money. And like the gentleman from the Department District Attorney said, I got a visit from one of the investigators from the District Attorney's office who had to interview me and says, well, you're not that guy. So what I did was I contacted the 3 bureaus and things like that. And now, when I try to do something online, it doesn't even let me get past that safeguard because it forces me to call in to the bureaus. Now I have to verbally give that information. So just piggybacking off what you were saying, yeah, sometimes it's always best just to call them directly without trying to do that online deal.
Wow. Very cool. So, it's obvious to me that just about everybody in it has some experience so far with something like this. And my guess is that there's a lot more people who are impacted, but they just don't report it. That's typically what it happens. You can figure it's probably twice as much because people ordinarily may not even take the time to report it. So what's the name of the 3 credit bureaus? Okay, let's say it all at the same time. Start with Experian. Experian.
Equifax.
There you go. Now, when you come to Operation Hope, we print you out a TransUnion report. Now, it's designed, this is if you take our workshop, a 3-hour workshop's free. You get a certificate afterwards, but we actually print out that report for you so that you have an idea. We only print one. That's TransUnion, and it does not have, it's what we call a soft hit. So it's not an adverse or negative impact on your credit score. But the purpose of it is to help you figure out where you are. You have to have a starting point. And so that's what we do. If you visit us and you don't have a report already, that's a great way to get a report free and then start working on your own stuff. What 2 reports should you complete when you're filing a complaint? What are the 2 reports you should do? Police? What's the other one? FTC. Take advantage of them. It's a great site. If you don't have a chance, go to FTC and look at that site. That site is really robust. And it has a lot of good information on stuff you would not ordinarily think about. So make sure you take advantage of that. And then, and you guys already answered this, but I have to ask it again, where do you go to get more information? FTC. Hey, you got it right. Okay, let's go to the next video.
Shopping for a car? Applying for a job? Looking for a home? Or just getting your financial house in order? Then it's time to check your credit report. Good news, it's free. The law entitles you to 1 free copy of your credit report from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies every 12 months. Why is it important to check your credit report? It has important information about your financial accounts, how you pay your bills, and if you file for bankruptcy. You want to make sure everything is accurate, especially before you buy a house or a car, or apply for a job. If you notice something wrong, contact the credit reporting company and business providing the information to correct the error. And checking your report can help you guard against identity theft. Visit ftc.gov/ID theft if you spot accounts that aren't yours. How do you order your free credit report? Order online from annualcreditreport.com, the only authorized website for free credit reports, or call 1-877-322-8228. You'll need to provide your name, address, social security number, and date of birth to verify your identity. Keep in mind, you're entitled to 1 free copy of your credit report every 12 months from each of the 3 nationwide credit reporting companies. So the next time someone asks, "How's your credit?" you'll have the answer. To order your free credit report, visit annualcreditreport.com or call 1-877-322-8228.
8228.
All right, that's the last video, but if you see these are geared towards the younger audience, and I think they're great. They give you good information, help to lock some ideas in. So why should you check your credit report? Why is it important? Outside of identity theft, what's important about checking your credit? What value can it have for you? Accuracy, peace of mind, what else? How are you, sir? Good, welcome. Who else?
If you're job hunting, what will your employer see?
That's right.
And are husbands and wives, they have separate credit reports?
Yeah.
Yes. If you have a separate credit, if you have a separate Social Security number, which we do, you have a separate report. Although there might be stuff on one report, on the other report, right? It could be on both, the same subject could be on both reports, right? Because you guys are both paying for it.
I wanted to ask a question on that note where it comes to employment. With the economy being as bad as it is for several years, a lot of people have fallen behind in, meeting their financial obligations. So does an employer still hold that against you,
No, I
knowing
don't.
that the job market is bad?
I don't think they hold it against you. I think it gives them a profile of what you're about. So what they're trying to see, a lot of times what a credit report would show someone, regardless of the economic circumstances, it shows your history of paying something that you borrow and watching how you pay it and how consistent you are in paying it and how much you pay it on time or not. Those are things that people peep at because that gives them a sense of your character. I'm not saying it's necessarily right. I'm not comfortable with someone looking at my credit report to determine whether or not I'm worthy to work with them or not, but that's the reality. Why? Because typically it comes down to an employer making a gut decision on hiring someone. They could look at the best resume possible, they could have the right chemistry, but it's a gut decision for the most part.
Foster kids have been one of my number one priorities, and over the years we've made some real progress here in the city. The opening of what was once called Emancipation Village, but now Rising Oaks as a place where foster kids could get transitional housing, the support of First Place, which is a nonprofit that does similar things and works closely with OHA, and I want to really give a lot of credit to OHA. I don't see Eric here today, but OHA has helped young foster kids get Section 8 and other kinds of housing service and work with the nonprofits so that they're not on the streets. Because both as a school board member and as a city council member, when you look at International Boulevard, a lot of those girls are on the streets because they're homeless and somebody says, oh, you can come and stay with us. Or, come and live with the next thing we know, they're out on International Boulevard and they've been abused and drugged and raped. And so helping young foster kids establish and become more money aware of their opportunities and how to control their finances now, particularly since under Sanjay Swanson's leadership, we're able to get foster care support extended until the age of 22 if they stay in school.
I think the important thing to keep in mind is what Ms. Dalton talked about is you have to control your personal identifying information. And it's not just Social Security numbers. It's your date of birth. It's your Social Security number. It's your address. It's all kinds of personal identifying information that the crooks use to make out like that they're you, right? And then they take out credit cards, they steal your identity. The focus is on the personal identifying information, and what I would like to reiterate that Ms. Dalton mentioned is you have to control that information, and it's not just your Social Security number.
Take heed in realizing that your identity belongs to you, and make sure you guard it because you get one. Thank you.